Well, this time of the year, there's not a lot to do in the home garden. You maybe in the fall have done some work. You might have tilled the garden up, added amendments, maybe even planted some cover crops. But as it's cold outside, you can't really do much for your garden. You could probably work on some tools. You could repair hose, sharpen them. You could work on irrigation equipment, fix things up. If you've got a tiller, you could do the maintenance on that in a garage like this. But there are some other things you can do. You can start planning your vegetable garden for the spring. Well, you're probably getting lots of seed catalogs this time of the year. All kinds of them coming in the mail, and you're thinking about all the new varieties that are out there, all the things you want to grow. And that's a good thing, to try different varieties each year. One of the things you want to think about is when you buy seeds, do you want to plant these seeds directly in the ground? Or do you have the ability with a cold frame or a warm place inside to make transplants? Or are you going to buy transplants from your garden center? That's going to be a little bit more expensive option, but either way, transplants are going to give you a head start on your garden in the spring. You also have to think about varieties and think about ones that are early, ones that are late. For example, lettuce, some varieties are slow to bolt or resistant to bolt. They'd be better for planting in the late spring or summer. And some lettuce varieties would be better for the winter time. Well, the next thing you want to think about is how you're going to grow your plants. Are you going to maybe make a raised bed? Now, raised beds are kind of the most expensive way to grow because you have to buy things to make the beds themselves. But usually it can help with soil warming in the early spring, and so maybe you can get another head start on the planting. Another way is just conventional flatbed production. Of course, this is going to be the least expensive, but you're going to need to till or something to till up the ground and maybe have to add amendments to the ground. And another thing to think about, if you don't have suitable land or you don't have much space, is to do container gardening, where you can have some type of container, pot, for example, that you can put your tomato plants in and other things in and grow them that way. So how much are you going to grow is the next question. Now, if you're an experienced gardener, you kind of have an idea of how many of this and of that to put out to make sure that your friends and family have enough of that. But if you're new, sometimes it's hard to tell. Some general guidelines for a family of 4, let's say lettuce, for example. A family of 4 could probably get by with about a 15-foot row of lettuce. They could probably be fine with maybe 10 to 15 tomato plants. And a family of 4 would also probably, if they were going to have beans or peas, would probably find that about a 40-foot row would be good for them. So we've covered a little bit about what to grow, how to grow it, and how much to grow. Now let's think about how much this is all going to cost. Now, generally, when people start a garden, they spend most of their money up front when they're starting out the first few seasons with tools, maybe a tiller, and things like that. But we found after a few studies over the years that in general, gardening is good for people. They do make that money back over time. And if you had to attribute a value to it, it's about 75 cents per square foot of gardening space a gardener might save on the vegetable crops that they grow in that area. So that's a pretty good return. So for example, if somebody had a 500 square foot garden, they might save anywhere from $300 to $400 on the tomatoes or potatoes or broccoli or other vegetables that they're growing in that space versus having to buy them at the grocery store. The last thing let's consider is how much time it takes to have a garden. On average, a 1,000 square foot garden can take 10 to 15 hours to establish, and it can take 4 to 5 hours of maintenance every week during the spring and summer. So that's definitely something to think about. You want to make sure you've got enough time to put that garden in. Well, I think you can find a lot more information from your local master gardener, and they're going to be at your county extension office. All you have to do is call them, and they're a great help. As we try to think more and more about saving money, next month we're going to talk about how to make your own transplants. For From the Ground Up, I'm Chris Mullins. We'll see you next time.